Hi, welcome and welcome to this month's Collegial Conversations. Thank you for taking the time and being here today. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive into what motivational interviewing is. So our title for today's webinar is Motivational Interviewing, Active Listening, and Productive Conversations. So before we actually talk about what motivational interviewing is, we have a brief disclaimer. Our project PFS CARE, which is Positive Family Supports, Community and Resilience in Education, is funded by the Institute of Educational Sciences. Just a quick overview of what we'll be talking today. So we'll have quick introductions. Then we are going to give a brief history and talk about the core tenets of what motivational interviewing is. We're gonna then touch on what active listening is, what it is and what is not. And we're gonna give a couple of tangible techniques in which we can integrate the concept of active listening. Then we'll touch on what productive conversations look like, give a couple of tips, a couple of techniques, and just a couple of strategies to overcoming challenges. And we'll also have a couple of examples that you can hopefully see and just, pick up some tips from there too. And lastly, we're going to be wrapping up with some sociocultural considerations and just talk a little bit about what the social and cultural and contextual realities are and how we can integrate that for hopefully utilizing these tips and tools in a more responsive way with our families. So just quick introductions. My name is Ana Maria Melendez Guevara. I am a research associate with the PFS CARE program, but I am also a research practitioner. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and throughout my time being a research practitioner, I have experience and expertise in child and family services, mostly in community-based mental health, as well as trying to adapt programs so they're more culturally sensitive and responsive to the needs, the sociocultural needs of our communities. And I'll let Ashley introduce herself.
My name is Ashley Previs, the program coordinator for PFS CARE. I'm a clinically trained mental health counselor, and my career focus has really been in leading the development, the evaluation, the implementation of programs that are focused for family and child health and well-being, specifically trauma-informed and culturally responsive strategies within local elementary schools. So we can move into motivational interviewing, its history and its core tenets.
So before, we thought we'll talk a bit about the role of toxic stress, and before we actually talk about motivational interviewing, because it's part of our reality, and because motivational interviewing is a strategy to really engage in conversations that are hard to engage in. So we wanted to really bring about the role of toxic stress on engagement and how it can really become a barrier to engaging families within our conversations and within the educational setting. So we know that pre or post-pandemic, and we know that post-pandemic things have been a bit more challenging for a lot of our families, but a lot of our families we work with live in a constant sense of survival. And when you live in that constant survival mode, you feel that there is a lack of connection. Why? Because you're always up here. You're always trying to deal with whatever might be going on in your context. And so connecting sometimes can feel threatening and sometimes can feel out of place. So a lot of our work in trying to engage families is really looking to what does it mean to foster and find relational safety. So how I could make my interactions with the families I'm working with more safe from their perspective. And we have ways in which we can achieve that. So for example, really look into what inside safety means. So how may that family be perceiving the situation themselves and how that family might be perceiving what else is going on around them. And that leads to outside sense of safety, which is really what is the context. Also what is like the actual physical context that is taking place right now. So where are you meeting? Is a conversation being held by phone? Is it at a place where family feels safe? And then in between, which is this relational safety that we'll talk more in a bit, in which really motivational interviewing takes place. It's really how is someone that we're hoping to engage in conversation is feeling within the relationship. What am I doing to help foster that safety? So motivational interviewing is really an opportunity to help reevaluate the way we are engaging with families, reevaluate our assumptions. So instead of seeing families as they're lacking engagement, really seeing the context as not safe. So how can we work towards more safety so we can help our families engage more with us? So just a couple of pitfalls to building engaging and rapport with families during difficult conversations. And we know that sometimes we must have difficult conversations when it comes to children and families, and within the school setting, whenever there are challenges that we have to engage in those conversations that might be perceived harder for a family. So we often tend to come as the experts, and we just want to fix and give expert advice. A lot of the times when our families might be dysregulated, they don't take that advice well because they just want to be heard. So one of the common pitfalls is just, come out as an expert, which in reality, you might be the expert on, education, or being a teacher, or being a social worker, being a counselor, but really the expert on a family is the parent, is that person that is in front of you. So avoiding the expert advice, it's actually something that we need to stay away from when we're trying to engage in difficult conversations. Also give premature advice. We often tend to provide unsolicited advice or premature advice without really hearing what the other person has to say. So really we need to really hear or listen to understand rather than respond. So really make a bigger effort to gather all contextual sort of considerations that might be happening around a difficulty or an issue before you jump in and reach conclusions or give advice. Labeling is also another common pitfall when trying to engage families in conversations. We tend to label, we tend to make an assumption, and that actually can be a barrier to further engagement. We also have emotions, and we also have our lens through which we approach conversations, and sometimes that can make it confrontational. So when we try to confront a family, perhaps because they didn't show up for a third appointment, trying to see if we can really find out what's going on, but that actually might end up being a further barrier to engagement, because particularly when families are dysregulated or we are dysregulated ourselves, confrontation just tends to escalate the conversation rather than trying to regulate it to help our families feel more safety. And then toxic positivity. Sometimes we just want families to feel better, and we want to, again, fix what's going on, but sometimes that's perceived as not really validating what might be going on. We might not really be in someone else's shoes. And when we bring about toxic positivity, we come off as unresponsive to the actual realities of the families we're working with. So we have this here to talk about, or to hoping to engage in conversation in a conversation on how we can build rapport by fostering empowerment. And this ties really well to what to avoid and what to do instead. So again, we want to avoid that expertise hat and really giving like an expert advice, And instead, we want to acknowledge dual expertise. Like I said, we might know something from our educational background, from our experience, but really we want to partner with whoever is the person that we're talking to, and really, soak into the expertise they have to bring to the table. So again, families are usually the expert on their children. So we want to partner and expertise so we can really understand the situation from a more holistic lens. We also want to bring about that empowerment piece. And to bring about empowerment, we want to make sure the families feel heard and feel a sense of agency. One way to do that is by offering choices. So offering choices can look in very different ways, but one of which can be, just offering a choice on the time where they can meet, or the place where we can meet, or, the issue or difficulty they might want to address first. When we offer choices and families can actually choose from the choices we offer, they feel a sense of empowerment, and that can lead the conversation towards a positive outcome. And then asking permission. I think we've all been there when something difficult needs to be addressed, and the other person just starts talking about it without us really being ready to address that situation. So asking permission is oftentimes a great strategy to bring about those difficult conversations. And again, allowing that other person that sense of agency in really choosing, yes, this is my time to talk about. And once we feel that way, usually resistance comes down and we can start bringing down those barriers to communication.
You would think by now I would know how to unmute, but still happens. Another way that we break down barriers in communication is through motivational interviewing. So motivational interviewing is a framework that was originally developed around in the 80s by clinical psychologists working with those with substance use disorders and really trying to get to the root of why those individuals continue to engage in behavior that they knew wasn't serving them in the most healthiest adaptive way. And so motivational interviewing really works to get at someone's core values, someone's core motivations for why they engage in the behavior that they engage in, and tries to align behavior that maybe doesn't go along with someone's values to more alignment with their values. It's been around like since the 80s. So for a while, it's well established, it's evidence-based because it has been implemented in many different systems, including healthcare and education. So it's not only just used in strict psychological settings, it's really a well-versed adaptive model. So the spirit of motivational interviewing, it's got four main components. So partnership, the person implementing motivational interviewing with the person that they hope to maybe get some behavior change out of, they're equal partners in this. There is no, like Anna said earlier, there's no I'm the expert and you're the person learning from me. We're both on the same playing field in this spirit of motivational interviewing. Also acceptance, full acceptance for who each other is and the situations that they're going through. So there's no judgment being passed. We really try to refrain from that as much as possible because judgment gets our defenses up and leaves us less able to accept help and ideas for change. There's also a strong core tenet of compassion in the spirit of motivational interviewing. We're really trying to come at these conversations in a way that shows that we are there for and care for the other person and the things that affect them. And so one way to really evoke change and sustained change in a relationship is to allow the other individual in that relationship to feel like they have someone who's their accountability partner who really cares about them. So an example of this is, say you have a doctor who shows that they really care about you when you come in for your annual physical, and there's something you might need to change about your health. If you have a doctor who really cares about you and you feel you can go to them with struggles, with new ideas, and they'll be welcomed and heard, you are much more likely to implement the changes in your health, and you're much more likely to continue that sustained relationship with that healthcare professional. And then evocation. So this is the idea that the client, whoever they may be, they might be a true client in a psychological sense. They might be a patient and a doctor, or they might be a caregiver in the educational setting. But the client has the ability within them to change. And the best ideas for change come from the client. And so the idea that, we're really putting that expert hat onto the families that we work with in school setting, because they have within them the ability to change and they know their situation best. So they are going to come up with the best ideas on how to change in a way that makes sense for them and their family. Okay, so why does motivational interviewing work? I just talked a lot about the positive things of motivational interviewing. So let's elaborate a little bit more. So it's client-centered. So in this setting, in the educational setting, it's parent-centered, caregiver-centered, family-centered. It's focused on them, and it's goal-directed. So we think about these SMART goals. It's really got, motivational interviewing does have the elements of a SMART goal within it. And these are attainable goals. Parents or caregivers are given the choice to change their own behaviors. Again, it's asking the permission. It's allowing the parent or caregiver in this relationship to truly feel like they have the autonomy for change, because they do. And it meets parents and caregivers where they're at. It's aimed at assessing problems. So what really is the core issue here? Exploring ambivalence. So, okay, so we know this is a problem. Why are we not doing anything to change it? Enhancing motivation to change. Okay, so it sounds like if X was changed, your life would really improve in this way. And promoting engagement. How can we keep you engaged in change? Because change is a process. Motivational interviewing reduces resistance. It builds perceived readiness to change, so more confidence, and empowerment in making the change and keeping it sustained. And it is also a framework that helps guide parents and caregivers to choose the best solutions for them and their family. And the guide is you or the school staff in this scenario. Okay, so a component of motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is the framework. A large component of motivational interviewing is this idea of active listening. Active listening has become somewhat of a buzzword depending on what circles that you find yourself in. But I will say that active listening is a full body exercise, and that is why it is so hard to do correctly. Active listening involves every part of your body, and it denounces everything that is always trying to take our attention. So you cannot be checking email, you cannot be checking your phone, we can't be posting on Class Dojo or looking at notifications from there if we're actively listening. Actively listening is something that takes place person to person, typically in person, but in our virtual world, you can still actively listen through Zoom. So it shows clear nonverbal behaviors that one is fully engaged in the interaction. Eye contact, mimicking facial expression. So if you're talking to someone who's smiling and happy, you also somewhat smile and, look somewhat happy to show that you're engaged. Body cues of leaning forward in the direction of those who are speaking, maintaining eye contact, and sitting still with interested silence at times. So, making sure that the person who is speaking has that time to speak, but you are still engaged, you're still making eye contact, you're still not on your phone. When someone is done speaking and it's your turn to talk, through active listening, verbal affirmations is one way to really show that someone was truly heard and understood, or that you're attempting to understand them, because we're not always going to understand everyone all the time. So examples include things like restating. So what I hear you say is reflecting. Okay, I think what I'm hearing is you feel this way. Asking open questions. So no yes or no's, not did this happen, but more like, why did this happen? Or why do you think this is occurring in your family, or things like that. And tell me mores are really great. So if we have a family or a client that we're working with that is maybe more quiet in their responses, less elaboration, or maybe you don't understand where the conversation is going, you don't understand the answer to the question you asked, tell me more is a great way to show that you're engaged and you're really attempting to understand, which is at the core of a lot of this. It's not that you fully understand me all the time, it's that you're trying and you're engaged. Okay, so what is active listening not? It's not being distracted. It's not being uninterested. You're not fidgety. And behaviors that communicate like I'm not mentally here, looking off to the side, tapping your pen, seeming uninterested, like that is immediately going to shut anyone down, particularly if there's a vulnerable conversation about one's child, one's student. Directly parroting or repeating what someone has said, asking closed yes or no questions, or aggressive language or aggressive tones is also immediately going to shut someone down or escalate a situation into a realm that's really difficult to de-escalate. So we try to use active listening as a technique to fall back on. I will say active listening, really, really hard to do when you're spent, when you've had a long day, when you don't feel like you're being actively listened to. It is a skill. It is a skill that you continue to practice. It's kind of like, okay, it's like a bike. Once you get on it, like, okay, I know how to do it, but if you don't ride a bike for a while, it's still going to be a little rusty. So you always need to practice your active listening skills. And it's not just good for work or the professional spheres we find ourselves in, but it is very helpful at home and in other personal relationships. But it does take effort. And that's why active listening can be a little difficult. So trying to build this out, motivational interviewing is a framework. A large way to get into motivational interviewing is active listening, but then a specific technique that can really get to the heart of active listening is the ORS technique. So I'm going to give that away to Anna. I think you're muted.
Of course I was muted. I was just saying thank you, Ashley, for introducing the ORS technique. So like Ashley said, this is a more tangible strategy that we can actually infuse in our conversations to really bring about that idea of active listening. So the ORS technique stands for open questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summaries. And it helps us remember what each of those letters are. So starting with open questions, like Ashley mentioned, when we lead with a close-ended questions, then we run the risk that the person we're talking with is just going to say a yes or no answer, or just like in a specific answer, and it's really hard to follow up on that. So we really need to ask questions that lead with curiosity and are open-ended so we can hear more, and it really shows that we are really interested in learning more. So tell me more is the perfect example for a follow-up to an open question, but an open question would be more of the how and the why as opposed to the what. So think about so a family that is constantly being late to school, so we really want to explore what might be going on, right? So and leading opening question might be so tell me more about your morning routine. So you leave it open for that family to fill in the blank, and then you can follow up on that later. So affirmations is the A on our ORS acronym. So affirmations are a really good way to convey the idea that we're really there, that we're being actively listened to, so that you're actively listening to that other person you're engaging with. Why? Because it works as a gut check. So someone tells you something, and what you're trying to do, you're trying to paraphrase in a way in which you're affirming what they're saying. So an example might be, what I'm hearing is, and then you fill in the blank. And then what you want to do is really check on the reaction of the other person to see if you got it right. And then you want to keep this a strength space. You want to also use affirmations as a way to help you reframe when the conversation is leading towards a negative connotation. So really being skillful in really trying to help reframe to change the sense of the conversation if again is going towards a side that you don't want it to go towards. And the reflective listening. Think about reflective listening as a mirror. You don't really want to repeat everything that the other person is saying, but you again want to convey the idea that you're there, that you're being a good listener, that you are actually reflecting on what the other person is saying, and then you can pick up from what the other person is saying to check in to see if you got it right. Also, reflective listening, sometimes we can infuse emotions to it, though sometimes we have to be careful because we don't want to infuse the wrong emotion, because then we are going to be perceived like we're not really listening. So again, like Ashley said, this is a skill. It takes time. It's like riding a bike. You're gonna do it. You might not be the fastest, the greatest, but the more you practice it, the better you become. And then summaries. A summary is a great way to wrap up a conversation, to pick up the points you want to take away, but also to convey the idea that you've been there the whole time. And also to help the other person understand that you've been there listening, and then you are able to, again, be there without distraction. And lastly is another strategy to as another gut check for you to make sure you're getting things right by getting the other person's feedback from what you're saying. We've talked about these a couple of times already. We've talked about it in training, and this is just a picture of this beautiful tool or handout that we developed. The PFS CARE one actually developed. She's very handy with these things. And this is just to help you utilize these strategies that we've been talking about. So one might be an example of an open question. Again, we want to really get to the how and the why as opposed to the what. So again, try that question that really leaves room for that other person to tell you about their experiences, to tell you about what might be going on, as opposed to just give you a straightforward answer that leaves you that doesn't leave room for following up. Again, affirmations helps with strengthening that relationship, strengthening what you actually want to get away from the conversation. And reflective listening, an example may be, like I said, so what I'm hearing you say is such and such. And then you give it back to the family, you give it back to that person, so the person can be like, huh, in that process dynamic feedback is where really that relational safety is being built. And then again, a summary. And summary is to wrap up the conversation and to make sure you're actually getting what you need to get from the conversation, and the family is really getting that feedback from you, that you are listening to understand, as opposed to just, moving away and listening to respond to certain things. And then we have a treat, which is just a quick video to show you how this might work in practice.
Thanks for making time to talk with me.
Yeah, of course. So I've got your dojo messages yesterday and today. Sorry, it took me a little bit to just get my schedule straightened up and being able to meet you. But I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you and really understanding what's going on, so I can see how we can help you from our end. So why don't we start by just talking about how you guys are doing with Sasha. I've noticed that one of the biggest concerns is drop off at school in the morning. I just would love to hear from you how this week has been going so far.
Yeah, I want to say Sasha loves school, and I really want to make sure that she gets there and, has time in the morning to settle in and not be too stressed out while she's, because I know we've been getting there later than the start of the day. And so that's been really hard and frustrating for our family. I work 2 jobs, so there are times where I don't have time to really get her ready for the next day, the night before, and I think that really slows us down in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we only have one car. And so it's really an issue of scheduling sometimes. The car is just not available. Sometimes I have to take public transportation. Um, and the bus just isn't close enough for Sasha to feel comfortable with her walking alone. And so that's just really some of the issues we're up against. And I know it's been causing a lot of stress, and I don't want her to view school as a stressful thing. And I don't want this, like, I don't want us to have a poor relationship either, because she really does like school.
Yeah, and it sounds like you also value education a lot. So that to begin with, it's like really, really, really cool to see that you both are on the same page. Both you and Sasha, you guys want to make a big effort to be able to be on time, but also we have to consider all the challenges that are going on to see how we can best help you and see maybe how we can figure out ways in which we can move things around from your end to see if things might is on your end and you guys have an easier time in the mornings.
Yeah.
So, well, just tell me if I got everything right. So you say that you have multiple jobs. So time management might be of a challenge.
Yeah.
Also, time in the mornings is pretty tight. So getting ready for you to go to your work, for Sasha to be up and ready for school, there is a lot to do. So that's a challenge. And also having just one car. Having just one car and not really having the availability of public transportation to rely on, that might also add a layer of complexity. And you know, this causes stress. You also value a lot the relationship with your daughter, and I'm sure Sasha values that a lot too. So thinking about ways in which we can bring that about, so Sasha knows she's being appreciated and valued, because I'm sure you guys are both putting a lot of effort in the question to make things work. Yeah. Let's think about ways in which the school can help. I can share some of the resources that we have available on our end, but is there anything that you can think of top of your head that we might be able to do to ease things for you guys in the morning?
Yeah, I think one thing is if there is like a before school program, sometimes it might be helpful. I can move things a little earlier, but can't move things later. And so if there is some sort of before school program on some days of the week that she can go to, so that, you know, at least I can get her there for that. And then she's there for the rest of the school day. I would rather her be early and be in a safe and supportive environment at school than to miss, you know, the first hour of the day.
Right. And, you know, just let me also say this before we continue. Half the battle is already won here because you guys acknowledge that there's something to work on. And that's usually what takes the longest. So you and Sasha looks like or sounds like you make a wonderful team, and hopefully with the resources and help we can provide on that end, we can make this happen. Yeah. So yes, definitely. I'll share a bit in a bit about some potential out of school programs or early school programs that we might be able to enroll Sasha in. And also share a couple more resources that we have on our end that you can start practicing at home to maybe get you guys on a different schedule and probably you know, ease the morning routine, and you might be able to, you know, have a less stressful morning. Yeah,
I think that's important too.
Yeah, so let me ask you, do you guys have any neighbors or friends, a family member, a community church that could potentially be a backup transportation in case it's needed?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of neighbors that I trust. I wouldn't want to rely on them all the time, but I definitely think on important mornings, or if there wasn't an ability for an before school program, I think I could rely on them.
Okay, and sometimes having a plan B set in place, even though we never use it or we never need it, it just, you know, takes something else from our plate. Yeah. So maybe working on that, working on making that connection, just figuring out what a plan B could potentially look like in case it's needed, might be a good place where you can start. And maybe this is something we can bring Sasha in, you know, who does Sasha feel more comfortable with?
Yeah.
Who the Sasha has strong connections with, because, we also want her to be comfortable. And we also want to make sure she's safe, right? So maybe this is a conversation the three of us can have together. You can always have the conversation with her at home, but if you want us to have that conversation to facilitate the plan, we can always jump in another call, and we can figure that out together too.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. It sounds like a plan.
Perfect. So I'm glad that you seem that is a feasible option. From our end, I know we do have some transportation services, although they only work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're not every day. And this transportation service is meant to aid parents that have tight schedules or conflicts in schedules. So the caveat with our transportation plan is that it has to be reserved ahead of time. So we know we have a driver available. So maybe this is your plan C. So we have plan B is our friend, our neighbor, and we have plan C, which is this backup transportation. So if you know there is one day in which you have a late appointment, or you feel traffic is not going to allow you to either pick her up or drop her off, maybe that's when you schedule that service.
Right.
So also it takes a stress out of your plate too.
Okay. Maybe that's something we can work on together the next time we have an in-person meeting. Is showing where I can go reserve those things.
Definitely. We do have some online resources that I'm going to send to your email, just so you can check it out. You can see how it works. There is some paperwork that needs to be filled out prior to setting up the service. So before from now to our next meeting, maybe you can just check that out, see if you have any questions, fill out the paperwork, and then we can discuss at that meeting how to set it up, and any other questions you may have.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's a really good start to everything. And I want to keep having conversations because I know we'll try things and sometimes it won't work the way we think. But if we can keep having these conversations, I think we can really get Sasha in a good spot where she's at school on time every day.
And she enjoys being at school so much. She comes and she's eager to learn. She's eager to see her friends. She has this smile and shine in her face. So just to make sure we reinforce that, and we don't give her an extra stress to worry about, because that might impact, the way she sees learning or her academic performance and things like that.
Right.
I also wanted to follow up with what you mentioned about the after school program or early drop off program. That's something I'll have to connect to with the family support peer.
Okay.
Within school, because she's the one that will potentially be able to help you first qualify for the program, and second help with all the paperwork, sign you guys up. Just talk to Sasha about it so she knows and understands what the program is, because again, we want her to be comfortable and have all the information before you guys decide whether or not to sign up for that program. So I'll refer you to her. I'll set everything up. I'll send an email to her and copy you, so you can be aware of those conversations, and she can set up an appointment with you so you guys can walk through that process together.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for meeting with me and thinking through this.
Yeah, of course. And one last thing that I wanted to share with you is that a lot of parents, and you said it yourself, the morning routine is just sometimes a challenge, right? So sometimes it helps to think about backwards. What's the time that you guys have to leave home to be able to make it on time to X or Y place, right? And then this is also something we can walk through in more specific detail next time we meet. But there are some tools that you can, it's like a chronogram of activities that we do in the morning. So we work backwards. So what's the time we have to leave in the morning? And then I'll ask you to think about all the activities that need to happen before you step your feet out of the door, right? So does Sasha have to eat breakfast? Does she have to get ready, brush her teeth? What do you have to do on your end? Do you have to, make breakfast, make lunch, walk the dog, whatever it is that you have to do? And then we start specifying those times, leaving a little bit of wiggle room so we make sure we are on target. Now and a lot of the families aren't really used to doing that, but it's just an invitation to see if that's something that might work with your family. And just maybe it allows you a different sort of perspective in the morning routine, and maybe that informs a earlier wake up time.
Yeah.
Right.
We're open to trying anything. So I think that would be helpful to try too.
I think that that sounds like a wonderful idea. So it sounds like we both have homeworks on our end. I'll connect you with the resources that I mentioned, and then in your own time, or whenever you feel like it's a good opportunity for you, just to explore the connections to see what a good plan B for Sasha and yourself is. And then next time we meet, I'll share what I found, and I'll give you an update. I'll bring the documents we talked about and the resources we talked about, and then we can talk a little bit further on how, a peer drop-off pickup looks like. Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. And again, I'm glad we're having this conversation because, to help a kid succeed at school is an effort from both our ends, our school, but also how things work at the house. So thank you for reaching out. And as always, one dojo message away. Thank you so much. Okay. Have a good afternoon. You too, Ashley. Bye-bye. Bye.
So now we're going to move into productive conversations after you saw that role play. And I just urge you to reflect on kind of the things that were shown in that role play as techniques, and if there's anywhere that you might improve.
So here are a couple more, a lot more strategies of how to make a conversation productive, tangible ways in which we can do it. So the first one is really be mindful about how we can be clear and concise, right? Just go straight to the point, or if you're working with a family towards achieving a goal, just be clear on what the next steps are. Then ask one question at a time. Why? Because to get the responses to build on safety and trust and to be productive in a conversation, I want to make sure families are clear on what we're being on what they're being asked about. So one question at a time is one of the ways in which we can do that. And then be patient. A lot of families might not have a history of holding safe relationships with educators or with people that belong to certain systems. So a lot of families or parents might not be used to having these type of conversations. So it requires a bit of patience. It requires a bit of patience to build that rapport, to build that sense of safety and trust. And again, you do that during the conversation, and that, bi-directional feedback. We also want to be mindful of how our tone comes through. So we want to use a neutral tone, right? We don't want to be up here or down here. We just want to use a neutral tone so we can model what a safe conversation is as well when we're engaging with families. Another way in which we can have a productive conversation is really by thinking about how to provide context that our families often need, particularly those families that are having a bit of difficulty engaging with providers at school. They might not know it all. They might not know the information they need to make the choices they need to be making for their children. So be mindful about the need that you might have to provide a bit more context in certain situations, and ask them questions, right? Whether or not they're understanding where you're coming from. Again, we want to always avoid assumptions. We all do. We all have our biases and we all have our assumptions every now and then, but we really want to let the family drive the interaction and the conversations, and making assumptions really clouds our thinking and clouds the way we're thinking about certain conversations and certain engagements. So we want to really lead with curiosity rather than judgment. And practice gratitude is always just not for engagement with parents and families, but always practice gratitude, because for a lot of people, engaging in a mindful conversation might take time from their day that may not necessarily have. So that conversation that they're having with you, they might have made, have to cancel certain appointments or miss hours of work. So always practice gratitude and show up for that.
So now we're going to talk about the stop technique. This is a way to engage in mindfulness during a conversation that might be going in a way that's escalated and not productive. A way that conversations become not productive really quickly is we get swept up in our emotions and we go for knee-jerk reactions and say things and maybe do things that when we are regulated and no longer escalated in our emotions, that we realize, oh, I don't know if that was the best way to go about things. We all do it, but it is something that sometimes can take a situation from a 2 in level of intensity to an 8. And so the stop technique is a way for us to pause a little bit, redirect our energy and our attention to our body and our breath before proceeding with how we're going to respond. So I use the stop technique in any sort of conversation that feels emotionally charged and maybe in a more negative way. So if there is a parent or a family member that just is really angry with the school system, and you're the one who reaches out to contact them about something, they might take it out on you. And so that would be a fantastic place for you to engage in the stop technique. So the stop technique is exactly what it means. It means to stop. It means to stop what's going on, allow the person to continue to do what they're going to do, but you internally can stop and you can take a breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth if you want to do your yoga breathing. And during this taking a breath, you're going to observe how you're feeling in your body. So maybe you feel that fight or flight kick in and you feel really tense. Or maybe you feel like, okay, I want to do anything to get out of this room right now. Just notice that. And this is all happening while you're taking a breath. So it happens in a matter of seconds. Just notice how you're feeling and just non-judgmentally observe it. And then you proceed. So it can be something as simple as stopping, taking a breath. Okay, I'm feeling really tense. And I'm kind of having this like out of body experience, maybe where I'm watching this other person get really angry at me, and I'm just gonna let them do their thing while I observe my inner sense of self, and then I'm going to proceed. So it's really quick, takes 3 seconds, but 3 seconds can be a lot in terms of an escalated scenario, can really stop us from saying or doing things that are just emotional knee-jerk reactions. And again, as Anna described, we have another handout for the stop technique, and it kind of just outlines the same thing, observing and noticing what's happening inside and outside of our body, and then mindfully re-engaging. So a great question to kind of ask yourself if you have the resources available in a situation like this is, what is one thing I can do or say differently now that I've had a pause? What is one thing I can do to maybe change the trajectory of this conversation? Okay, so we'll move on to sociocultural considerations for productive conversations and just active listening and motivational interviewing and everything we've been talking about, because it's all within the same kind of sphere. If we had a Venn diagram, they'd all be overlapping with each other. Okay, so motivational interviewing and cultural responsiveness. Motivational interviewing, when we come from the lens that we're equal with the person we're working with, we have nothing but compassion for them. We have a genuine curiosity of why they're engaging in the behaviors they're engaging in, and a genuine confidence that they'll be able to change the behaviors they want to change into something more productive. We create relational safety. It's safe in this relationship now. This person can be more vulnerable if they feel that they'd like to be. And they can feel safe that they can say things that maybe they wouldn't say if we hadn't established this type of working relationship. Motivational interviewing recognizes that all families have a culture. So really coming from like the partner standpoint and the compassion standpoint, recognizing that all families have their distinct, unique culture, and they operate in a distinct, unique way, and it doesn't make it wrong. And it doesn't make the way that we're doing things wrong or right either. It's just different. And coming at these conversations from an MI, motivational interviewing lens, can really highlight the importance of the family's culture and show compassion and care for it. We also show a willingness to step out of these authority roles and these power dynamics that are so entrenched in the systems that we work in. They're in every system that we work in, and they can really cause a host of problems. So being able to step out of that authority role, I am the expert, I'm the school staff member, I know what's right. Even if you do, just being able to take a humility standpoint for a second and hear the family or the caregiver and where they're coming from is an acknowledgement of, okay, I'm shifting these power dynamics a little bit and giving some power to the families that we work with, is maybe more power than they've ever had in this system before. And it's going to gain you a lot of trust. And so parents will see themselves as a part of a shared community. They're going to want to be, even if it's small incremental little changes, they're going to want to be more present in the relationship with you as the school staff member, the relationship with the school eventually. And that will eventually, if not already, trickle down into their student. Motivational interviewing also shows families that we understand that engagement is fluid. It's not one size fits all. It's going to look different for every different type of family based on the resources they have available. Sometimes engagement just looks like, okay, I'm actually going to respond to your class dojo message. And sometimes the engagement looks like, I'm going to show up to all the after school events that the school throws for the community. Coming from this cultural responsive lens through motivational interviewing also highlights cultural differences as a strengths and recognizes systemic oppression and marginalization. We don't have to verbally say it. When we are able to step out of those power dynamics, work in a partnership, show compassion and genuine curiosity, this already stops some systemic oppression and marginalization because we're not engaging in the typical fashion that has kept so many families from feeling like they're an outsider in this system. There are a lot of contextual realities that we need to be aware of for productive conversations. There are a lot of things on here that you might be experiencing personally, that we all are experiencing at a macro level, and our families are experiencing them too, some more than others. And so it is just a quick check this slide to remind ourselves that sometimes the difficult conversations we're having, the emotions we're feeling, the heightened emotions are not always directed at us because we live in contexts that we can't divorce ourselves from. So just a recognition that things have built upon themselves for a while now and will continue to. And that our families are dealing with these as much as you are.
And to wrap up our conversation from today, we also want to just have a self-reflective moment. So another way to be culturally responsive in a way in which we are engaging in more responsive conversations with our families is really by being self-aware that our identities are charged with what we bring to the table, whether we recognize it or not. And the invitation by having this conversation today is to really recognize that every single identity we bring to the table sets the stage for how the conversation can go. And we have the agency to either use that as a privilege and as our power, or use it to humble ourselves and really convey that idea that, again, we are not the authority. We are here to be partners and collaborators. Some of those identities can be the fact that we have an education. It doesn't have to, not all has to, trickle down to race or ethnicity, but just the fact that we might be exposed to different access or resources that other families have, and that really colors our experiences and is a lens through which we see a conversation. So we wanted to share this wheel in which a lot of these intersectional identities can't intersect with each other. So really be thinking about how your gender identity, your gender orientation, your ethnicity, again, your educational background, your ability, your mental health, also the resources or access you have, and even your citizenship and status can be a way that, again, it can either be a barrier to engagement, or you can use it to empower the communities or the families you're speaking with.
So this is more of what Anna just spoke to. So this is not something that we need to bring up with families or something that, we really need to study, but just being aware of what identities do we bring to the relationship that, we we might bring from a place of power and privilege, and we might be using it in a way that asserts power and privilege over others, or are there a way that we can use our identities to really take a step back and try to understand where other people are coming from, their backgrounds and their shared identities and all of that. So we all hold some level of privilege and power, particularly if we're just our ability to make this presentation and to work in higher education. Me and Anna have privilege and power, and at times, like, we have may spoken like we are the experts in this presentation. And there are times where you will also experience that with families. Just being able to be aware of that is really the point of this slide, to understand there are identities that we hold that the families we're working with will not hold, and maybe we won't fully understand what they hold and they won't fully understand what we hold, but trying through motivational interviewing, through active listening, through genuine curiosity and compassion is something that's going to take the relationship really far.
I believe this is our last piece of information we wanted to share before we show you another tangible example of how to really engage in productive conversation. And engaging with people, whether or not they're the families we work with, parents of the students, could be challenging. And again, it could be challenging because no one lives in a vacuum, and we all have our contextual and individual realities. And sometimes we bring more to the table that we recognize. A couple of ways in which we can overcome these challenges is really think about why the resistance from the other end is building up. And where might these people, where might this family be coming from? So try to reframe that, again, people do not live in a vacuum and they come from their own context, and that the really curiosity of what might be going on. And in that way, we can really, instead of working directive with the family, we can work in a collaborative manner. So try to collaborate to really find answers, to find a way in which you can find a common ground, and to really allow a space for that understanding to come through. And then connect. Make sure you are working towards building that relational safety. Everything you say, everything you do, and how you show up helps build that relational safety, from active listening to validating, to just being present and not utilizing assumptions or not being judgmental. That helps really flourish these relational safety, connection piece that we really wanted to highlight today. Make sure you're listening again to understand what's being said rather than jump with a conclusion or an advice. You just really want to convey the idea that you're there to listen, to be there. So be within that space and understand what might be going on. And then respond with pace. And pace is exactly what this acronym is about. Can you slow down? Take a minute to slow down and respond with a playful side. If you feel comfortable, you can use, if you have the personality, you can maybe infuse a bit of a healthy humor or, like a playful side to break down the ice. Be accepting is the next one. Accept what's being told without judgment to move forward. And again, be curious. Be curious. Always lead with curiosity rather than judgment or with a judgmental lens. Be curious. Again, no one lives in a vacuum, and we all have more on our place that we give credit for. So be curious and try to understand what might be going on. And empathetic. And I think empathetic is not just a way to enhance relational safety and enhance engagement with our families, but also with our families, our other type of relationships, our co-workers. Empathize. You might not understand where they're coming from, but you can be there to convey the idea that you're there to listen and to just sit with what is being told. And just very quickly, a couple of other strategies in regards to motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing really helps us go above and beyond what is being told and really help us explore what else might be going on that might be serving as a barrier to engagement. So it helps us with exploring our values. What are the values of the family you're trying to engage with, and what is that long-term goal that you all can be working towards together in the best interest of that child? And then really looking forward, what can be done, what tangible next steps can be done in the short-term future to help the relationship and whatever goal might be the one that families are trying to be working on. And really exploring what's important for families, and what's important for them, in a sense in which you are conveying respect, conveying collaboration, and trying to empower families. And then it's a balance. It's a balance between what's being told, how you're responding, and how ways in which we can provide that agency and empowerment to families. And a lot of the time it's really shifting the focus from problem solving to proactively preventing situations to happen again. And I think that's a goal that you and the families you're working with can set together. So again, the process is more collaborative. And then reframe your assumptions. Again, we all carry a context that might be invisible. And so we have to slow down, sit with what is being told, and try to reframe in a way in which conveys more understanding. And then developing a plan. A lot of people like to walk away with something tangible. So what are the next steps that I can take from this conversation, this meeting today, that I can probably or hopefully implement in the short-term future that can help me with that confidence and empowerment so I can move forward. And then we have another short video of an interaction utilizing motivational interviewing skills and active listening skills that we wanted to share with you.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for making time to meet with me today.
Oh, yeah, no problem. By the way, I just have 5 minutes because I have to run into another meeting. So what's up with Elias today?
Okay. I know it's been difficult for us to touch base. We've had a couple of messages through Jojo that, we haven't been able to respond to and all that. I really want to talk about behavior concerns.
What did he do right now? Did he do something else? What is he in trouble again?
There's just some behavior concerns in the classroom with Elias that I'd really like to talk through with you, really in person, and things that I feel, we can work through together as a team. And so,
I feel like I always get a call. You always tell me he's done something wrong. You always tell me, he's in trouble or he's going to he did this, he did that. And I just feel like it's not productive. I mean, I'm even considering changing him to school because, it's always the same thing.
wow. Well, okay, so I'm hearing it sounds like we are just like consistently bombarding you with just maybe constructive criticism and not enough praise. And it really does sound like it's really impacting his experience in school and your experience as a family with our school.
It's getting calls from you. It's always overwhelming because there's a lot to do in the day, and every time I see the phone and I see school, it's just like, okay, what now? So it's overwhelming on my end. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't want you to see my number on your caller ID and want to avoid it or think, what next? It sounds like it's been really frustrating and kind of exhausting.
You're right. It's exhausting to having to think about. I sent him to school because I know he likes it.
Mhm.
And just learning that he's not having a good time or like it's always getting into trouble. I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing maybe at your wit's end of not really sure where to go next. It sounds like we're at like a turning point with how to handle this behavior.
Yeah, I would just really would love for someone to tell me what I can do to help him, what I can do myself to make things easier on his end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I hear maybe feeling like, the school's become a place of stress, and not really feeling where to go next with the behavior, I really think it might be best for us to bring in an additional support that we have in the school. I don't want this to be us versus your family or us versus you. It really is us in collaboration together to get the best learning experience for Elias and the best environment for him. And so we have something called the family support peer. They are at the school for our families. And I'm wondering if bringing them in, and if we can find the time, I know you're really, really busy, but this is also really important and could ease a lot of stress if we can figure this out together. I'm wondering if we bring in a family support peer and we have a collaborative talk all together, we could really think of some ways and strategies to address this behavior so that everyone is less stressed out.
I'm just really worried. I'm worried that it's not going to get better. I'm not sure if a family support here can provide what my family needs. Can you just tell me a little bit more about what this would look like?
Yeah, so the family support peer is really knowledgeable about everything within our school, but also within our communities of how to support our children in a lot of different ways. So from your basics to transportation and making sure our kids have enough to eat and somewhere safe to go after school, but also more behavioral concerns, whether that be something as simple as working with all of Elias's teachers and support staff, and so they're aware of kind of what's going on and that he can have a set expectations and program to work through at school. But also we can bring in external supports, and this is where the family support peer is really partnered with our community. It doesn't have to be something as super scary as maybe partnering with a mental health agency. It could be a supportive program outside of the school for kids who maybe learn like Elias or have behavior similar to Elias, and they have supports that can go above and beyond what our school has. But really, she is a wealth of knowledge, and she's really, really centered in family care, not just academics and in the classroom. It's a holistic approach.
I guess that sounds like something we can try. I really don't want him to be blamed for something he doesn't do. I just feel that sometimes I get these calls from school and it's always, oh, he's a bad boy, he's this, he's done that, and he's just a kid, he's learning. And I just want to make sure that whoever person helps us through this process knows that it's not that he wants to be bad. It's that I just don't feel like we found a good match for my family. And on top of that, I have 3 jobs. I am a single
Wow.
parent.
Mhm.
I just don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. Well, I want to apologize and let you know that we never want to blame our students and our kids that we work with. And so I'm sorry if that has ever been explicitly said or inferred. That's never what we mean. I really want to reset this relationship. I love having him in class. When he is able to focus and he is, you know, his best self, he is a joy in class and really brings out so much of the good qualities and characteristics of the other students I have. I do think, you know, we can work together to reset this relationship and make it a working collaborative relationship where neither of us are blaming each other. I know emotions get really hot and heated and,
They do.
we've been frustrated at times. But I want us to move forward in a way where we can work together and not opposing each other.
I guess that sounds like a good plan to move forward. I just want the best for him. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I come across like I don't care, but I just, it's hard to manage time.
This is really overwhelming, and I don't want you to ever hear under what we say that we don't like Elias or that we don't believe in him. That's quite the opposite. And I think that's why we push so hard sometimes, is that we really do want the best for him and know that he can rise to the expectations that we have. It's really about finding a way that he can do it that's not stressful for everyone involved, something that challenges him but doesn't challenge him too much. And so I think if we can work together with the supports that we have at school, let me set everything up for you. We'll find a time that works for you. And if we need to go back and forth about scheduling, that's okay.
Okay.
I can take this small scheduling burden on, and maybe the expectation is just like, you can come and we can do this in person and reset the relationship, or come with an open mind.
I would like that. And I would just please ask you, if you are setting up a meeting, just please let me know at least for 2 weeks in advance so I can make sure I have the time off from work.
Okay. Yeah, so that's my homework for this. Is I'll set up a meeting, I'll get all of our key players involved and make sure that, at the forefront of this is making sure that your family is respected and we're able to work in a way that highlights your family's strengths. I'll give you more than 2 weeks, and then we can plan for it to be in person, and you can really get a feel for our school a little bit better, and we can create an action plan together.
I think I would like that.
Okay, so let's end this meeting. I know you don't have a whole lot of time, so I will follow up on those things. I'll send you an email, and if no worries, if I need to follow up via phone call, I understand you're really busy and I won't come at it from a perfect.
That's something you can do. So
Yes.
I'll just reply whenever I'm able to.
Okay, all right. So I'll make sure to send a text. And thank you again for taking time to meet, and we'll talk soon.
Well, thank you so much too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So thank you for watching this and attending this and taking the time to further your professional development in these ways. We really appreciate it, and could not have made PFS CARE what it is today without you. So thank you. Our contact information is here. We really enjoyed this time. And please, of course, if there are any questions, concerns, your certificate of attendance for watching this, please send us an email at pfscare@asu.edu.